I'm Henry Latham, and as part of the Product MBA Leadership Summit, I'm going to be filling in the gap. We had a bit of a scheduling conflict with one of our speakers, so I thought, rather than trying to quickly grab someone in, I'm just going to give you my thoughts on product leadership and actually some observations I've taken away both from the series, having spoken to 11 highly effective product leaders, all from very different backgrounds as well, and also like my personal philosophy towards product, which I think it was nice to see actually reflected in some of the conversations. So we're just going to do a short 10-minute video on summarizing a couple of the learnings and also my process, as I said, how I think about product. It was really interesting to see across the series some of which are to come, obviously, different approaches, but also the very common thread that I kept seeing. We talked, yes, about skills, specific frameworks, specific habits, whether that was with, for example, Ravi Mehta on the need to be more strategic, the need to be a more rounded, fully shaped product manager. We talked about those 4 product competencies: so execution, customer insight, product strategy, and influence, right? And the concrete skills around those. We also looked, for example, with Eric Fisher at actually what are specific skills that you can implement to become more effective. How do you manage your time with things like blocking out time in your calendar, journaling, meditation, these kinds of specific habits. But the common theme that I see with product leaders, right, people getting very senior, becoming more confident in themselves, maybe shaping their own approach to product, is really the emphasis on soft skills. That yes, it's important to get things done and be efficient in our process. How are we managing sprints, for example? Do we have documentation in place? Those are important, but really the soft skills are the things that came through. Conversation with Marissa Silk in our first conversation around, the messy nature of products and the fact that you can never fully manage that. And you need to really build internal systems, soft skills to, for example, herd a very diverse group of people, one that's constantly changing in a context that is constantly changing, and maybe with goals and outcomes that are constantly changing and evolving as well. So it's not easy. And, my personal principles around product or my personal philosophy really ties into this and the importance of soft skills. And I published a book last year called Why Your Startup is Failing, really sort of summarizing my thoughts. And for me, it comes down to these 3 levels. We talk a lot about process. And as I said, yes, that's important. So we should have, vision in place, strategy. We should have a lean product development process to ensure that we're moving towards that strategy effectively. Top level. Level down, we need to be managing our team. Are we, for example, cultivating psychological safety? Are we creating an environment where people feel that they can take risks, that they are supported, that they can share honest feedback with each other? But really, for me, where it starts is the bottom level, the bottom layer of that cake or of that building, right? The structure is ultimately yourself. How are you managing yourself? And there are 3 specific principles that I always carry with me, and I actually have tattooed in various forms on me, which come down to 3 things, really: being mindful, being robust, and being able to focus on the essential. If we are not mindful, then it is very difficult to detach ourselves from our work. For example, detaching ourselves from an idea, not getting offended, right? Being able to remove our ego from feedback that we're given, whether that be from teammates, whether that be testing out an idea and customers just not responding or saying, I don't care, or I don't really understand what this is. So by being mindful, we're able to sort of zoom out and really see things in a more detached, objective way, and be effective. And, we like to talk a lot about data and being data driven, but you cannot do that, nor can you run a lean product development process if you are not mindful of yourself and if you're not objective. You will be twisting the data, manipulating the data in a bit different ways. If you are feeling stressed, panicked, driven by ego, then you're not going to be maybe seeing the nuance in the data. You might not see the objective truth in that data as well. And ultimately we can manipulate data. however we see it, or manipulate the data that we are not seeing, or focusing on one thing at the expense of another. So by being mindful, again, we can really detach ourselves, see things more clearly, which ultimately help us be more effective and also more strategic. Secondly, being robust. Why is this so important? This is, the key lesson, I think, when it comes to being effective in product. Being robust and being persistent specifically. Because it is, for example, very easy to read about, something like read The Lean Startup, or you read Inspired by Marty Kagan, or you read The Build Trap by Marissa Perry. But it is a very different thing to put that into practice. What is it like, and how do you react when, for example, you get buy-in from investors, you get buy-in from leadership, stakeholders? Let's say you pitch a vision and a strategy. You pitch that and then you test it out and it doesn't work. Or you've committed to a roadmap and you're saying, nothing seems to be resonating. I think it's also not about, us not delivering. It's just, I think we got the value proposition wrong. It's easy to read about just, when do you persist? When do you pivot? Very different to do that in practice. Very hard because it's a hit to your ego. You have to turn the ship around. You have to re-navigate stakeholders. You're going to maybe have lost some trust with them as well. So being persistent is key, and this is why we designed the product in a very specific way to actually get you to experience product iterations and building something from scratch, because you will not get that right first time unless you're very lucky. So going through that process of iterating and trying something, failing, coming back and trying again is really, really important. Not just to being effective in product, right, and persisting long enough to see something working, but or persisting to actually push through change in, let's say, a sales-led organization, moving that towards product-led. But it is very important to life as well. I did a lot of research for my book, and commonly across Tibetan Buddhism, Confucianism, if you look at Christianity, Islam, it is a common thread, Greek philosophy as well, a common thread that I see is, asking the question, what is the key to life? What is important in life? Almost always it came back to persistence, the ability to persist, to resist, and to continue pushing through even when you may be struggling or facing what seems like an insurmountable challenge. And that's why being robust is so important. Again, it will get you over that hurdle, and also it will make you ultimately a happier person, more fulfilled, not using the word happy, more fulfilled person. And finally, being focused on the essential. The busier you get, the more senior you get, the less time you are going to have. The more people are trying to take your time, the more people will be capturing your attention, whether that be more Slack messages, more emails, simply more things to worry about. Being focused on the essential is incredibly important, because there will be so many things distracting you. And translating that into more concrete terms, if we look at product, even if you're in a product-led environment where you're driven by, let's say, qualitative feedback, quantitative data, you have to there also separate the signal from the noise. So that doesn't mean listening to everyone and saying, we've had 100 customers that have requested this, and quickly panicking and building it or reacting to it. Instead, it's about being really strategic and ruthless and saying, what can we actually eliminate? And what should we double down on? Example from our case, like our core product offering is based around the value proposition of being very practical and hands-on and providing a lot of guidance and support. If something, say for example, we do a week 1 survey and an offboarding survey, if something comes in that doesn't tie in with that value proposition, we simply don't do it. We could, for example, improve the quality of videos, provide more in-depth case studies. But we ask ourselves simply, is it practical? Is it going to be hands-on? If not, we're not going to do it. We're not going to cover everything. We're going to be very focused on what our core value proposition is. Similarly, when it comes to the use of time, how are you eliminating distraction? Can translate into specific things. I don't want to make this a sort of productivity hacking session, but simple things like getting up an hour earlier, blocking out the first hour of your calendar, even first half hour of your calendar. running a weekly exercise that I do. For example, I journal every day, and part of that is every Sunday I review my week and I eliminate what didn't deliver value, and I double down on what did, and that takes 10 minutes every week. Not a big deal. So as I said, like, I have lots of these suggestions. I'm going to link through to an ebook that I wrote on this topic about actually managing oneself more effectively with some specific suggestions. But I thought it was worth tying some of the threads that, as I said, I've seen through this product leadership series, and also just sharing my own thoughts. And as I said, that means, yes, skills are important. Yes, frameworks are important. Yes, being deliberate about how you improve yourself as a product manager by, for example, specifically focusing on product strategy for a few months. Very important. But the soft skills are what really matter. Right? How are you empathizing with others? How are you connecting with team members, particularly in a remote world? How are you communicating in clear, concrete terms? And 3 things that you can specifically focus on, right, always have top of mind is, are you being mindful so that you can see things clearly? Are you being robust so you can deal with the inevitable obstacles that come your way? And 3, are you focusing on the essential? How are you defining that? Are you acting upon it, more importantly? And if you keep those 3 things in mind, then you have a really strong foundation for being an effective product leader. Right? You manage yourself effectively. That means you can manage your team effectively. And that means you can manage your product development process effectively. Thanks for listening.